Have you ever been watching a movie and felt like something was missing? Or noticed how certain global conversations seem to suddenly shift? Well, today we're diving deep into a fascinating and really complex strategy that's all about influence. We're not talking about traditional diplomacy, though. This is a battle fought with words, with narratives, and with the power to define what's real. So let's start with something you've probably seen yourself: movies. You know, in Top Gun Maverick, Maverick's iconic jacket originally had Taiwanese and Japanese flags on the back. But in the first trailers, poof, they were gone. Or take Marvel's Doctor Strange. In the comics, a major character is Tibetan. In the movie, suddenly they're Celtic. These aren't just random choices, you guys. It's a pattern of self-censorship that's quietly reshaping the entertainment we all consume. And it's not just film nerds noticing this. People at the highest levels of government have pointed it out. This quote from a former U.S. Attorney General really hits the nail on the head. He calls it a massive propaganda coup. And the key part is that phrase, doing their work for them. A lot of the time, Beijing doesn't even need to pick up the phone. Hollywood is already changing its own movies. So the real question is, why? Well, the answer comes down to one absolutely massive number: $2.6 billion. That's how much the Chinese box office was worth to American movies in just 1 year. I mean, for a blockbuster like Avengers Endgame, China was actually a bigger market than the US. So when you've got that kind of money on the line, yeah, studios are going to have a pretty powerful reason to play by the rules. But what we're going to see is that this financial power is just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. Okay, so to really understand what's going on, we have to look past the money. We need to get to the core idea that's driving this whole strategy. For decades, we've all talked about global influence using the term soft power. But China is playing a totally different game, and it's called discourse power. Right, so this slide gets to the absolute heart of it. Soft power. That's the idea we're all familiar with, right? It's the power of attraction. It's Hollywood. It's pop music. It's making your culture so cool that other people want what you have. It's basically a popularity contest. But discourse power? That's something else entirely. It's not about being liked. It's about being in charge of the conversation. It's the power to set the agenda, to define what's true, and to literally write the rules of the game. The official term for this concept is Huayuquan, and while it translates to discourse power, it's so much deeper. The goal here isn't just to get a seat at the table and be heard. The goal is to be the one who designed the table, who wrote the menu, and who decides what everyone's going to talk about. It's about becoming a superpower of values and standards, kind of like rewriting the world's entire operating system. So, okay, that's the big idea. But how do you actually do it? How do you build that kind of power? Well, our sources lay out a pretty clear framework. Let's break down the 3 core strategies that are being used to make this happen. It all boils down to 3 main tactics. First up, you have infiltration. That's all about using existing channels to get your message out there. Second, co-optation. This is where you use economic leverage, money, to get other people to spread your message for you. Think Hollywood. And third, confrontation. This is the aggressive part, directly attacking anyone who pushes a different story. Let's dig into each one. So this first mechanism, infiltration, it's guided by this classic Chinese strategic saying, Jiechuan Chuhai, which means borrowing the boat to reach the sea. And the idea is just so simple and so clever. Why go through all the trouble of building your own boat when you can just use someone else's to get where you need to go? And this borrowing the boat idea is happening on a massive scale. You have state-run media like China Radio International and CCTV reaching hundreds of millions of people all over the world. But the really brilliant part is using channels that people already know and trust. So when you see an article written by a Chinese official in, say, the Wall Street Journal, that's borrowing the boat. They're using the newspaper's reputation to deliver their own message. And it's no secret, the stated goal isn't just to report the news, it's to actively advance China's discourse power. All right, now for the second mechanism. And this brings us right back to where we started, Hollywood. Co-optation is all about using that economic muscle to control the story. This right here is what the price of admission looks like in real life. If you want access to that massive market, you make sure your film is compliant. And studios often do this before a censor even sees it. So a movie about Freddie Mercury, Bohemian Rhapsody, suddenly has no references to him being gay. A scene gets cut from a James Bond film, Skyfall. The writer for Doctor Strange literally admitted they changed the character from Tibetan to Celtic specifically to avoid political trouble. That is co-optation in action. You use your economic power to make others censor themselves for you. Now, this third mechanism is a huge shift. It's a move away from the subtle stuff and into something much more active and aggressive. This is the age of the wolf warrior, where Chinese diplomats and their online allies directly attack any story or any person they don't agree with, often on Western social media. Whoa. Okay, look at this chart. It's pretty wild. It shows new Twitter accounts that followed Chinese diplomats. For months, it's just a trickle, normal stuff. Then, bam. March 2020, you see this absolutely vertical spike. It's completely unnatural. So what was happening in March 2020? That was the exact moment when global criticism of China's handling of the COVID outbreak was at its peak. This wasn't a sudden rush of new fans. This was the birth of a digital army, created overnight to fight a narrative war. So where did this new digital army point its guns? This network map tells the story. Their activity wasn't random at all. It was incredibly focused. You can see these clear clusters. This orange group here, they're almost exclusively replying to US government officials. The blue cluster, that's all major Western media outlets. And the green one is targeting known critics of the Chinese government. This is the literal blueprint of a coordinated campaign to swarm and silence specific voices. And here you can see the two sides of this confrontational strategy working together perfectly. On the left, you got the bot network, just dozens of accounts spamming the exact same copy-pasted message. It's a blunt instrument designed to just flood the zone with noise. But on the right, you have the official wolf warrior diplomat, using a much sharper weapon, co-opting the phrase, "I can't breathe," to try and deflect criticism of what was happening in Hong Kong. The swarm attacks with volume, the diplomat attacks with precision. It's a really powerful 1-2 punch. So we've looked at the big idea of discourse power, and we've broken down the three main ways it's put into practice. Now, let's just pull it all together and look at the complete blueprint for how you can shape a global narrative. So this is it. This is the three-part playbook. First, infiltration. You borrow the boat of global media to get your story out there. Second, co-optation. You use your economic power to make giants like Hollywood do the censoring for you. And third, confrontation. You unleash diplomats and digital armies to attack anyone who dares to contradict you. It's a comprehensive, layered strategy designed to control the story from every angle. So when you zoom out, what does all of this really mean? Well, this goes way beyond just one country's image or PR. We're talking about a fundamental change in how global power works in the 21st century. What we are really watching is a contest to see who gets to write the world's story. This fight for discourse power is a fight to define reality itself, to decide what ideas count, what values matter, and what truths are considered universal. This is the new great game, and its battlefields are our news feeds, our movie theaters, and the very institutions that govern our world. Which leaves us with a final, and honestly, a really tough question. As these incredibly sophisticated strategies for shaping our reality become more and more common, the line between information, entertainment, and propaganda is just going to get blurrier. So in a world where everyone is fighting for discourse power, how do you figure out what's actually true? That's definitely something we're thinking about.